Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I think it's just past 11 Eastern, so we'll kick off, and I'm sure we'll have a few more joining us as we go. I'm Tamara Ecker, and on behalf of all of us at British American Business, first like to wish everyone a very happy new year. And today it's my pleasure to welcome you to our first Accelerate Roundtable of 2021. We're very lucky to have with us entrepreneur Jason Paez, co-founder of HVN Travel Group. We'll properly introduce Jason in just a little bit, but first a couple of logistics. Jason will kick off. He'll deliver about 10 to 12 minutes of remarks, followed by a moderated discussion with our Accelerate Committee Chair, Roger Barton. Questions, comments from the audience are always encouraged, but when you're not talking, please do keep your mics on mute and then unmute when you are making your remarks. And lastly, the Accelerate Committee has taken feedback on and considered your interest in more networking opportunities. That said, we encourage everyone to stick around once the roundtable discussion concludes, at which point we'll send you off into smaller breakout rooms for about 10 minutes, just for some light networking and conversation. So with that, it is now my pleasure to introduce Roger Barton, Managing Partner of Barton LLP. He'll introduce Jason and facilitate our discussion. So Roger, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Tamara, and Happy New Year, everyone. Good to see you. I'm trying to compete with Jason's background to put you all in the travel mode. Here we are. It's a real pleasure and it's exciting to have Jason on this program today. I've known Jason for many years. Full disclosure, he's a client, or his companies are clients. And it's always hard to keep after him because every few years he comes in with this great new idea for a new business. So it's exciting. Jason's formal bio is he's an entrepreneur, but he has a focus on mission-driven companies. I think that's the overarching theme that you'll also hear about today. And as you heard, he's the CEO of HVN Travel Group. Throughout Jason's career, he's tried to identify and be at the forefront of new innovations. Interestingly, particularly for a guy who can't do math, Jason started his career in the sciences, working under a molecular geneticist, Gunther Global, who went on to win the Nobel Prize for Medicine. Notably, Jason was also a member of President Obama's National Finance Committee and advised the Obama White House, Treasury, and Commerce departments on matters related to innovation. So Jason, I will let you give sort of your journey, if you will, to where you are now at HVN, any other companies along the way that you want to talk about. If any of you have passed by many of the juice bars in New York City, you would see some of Jason's, among other things that you've come across in your travels. So Jason, thank you for doing this. I'll open it up, let you give a few minutes, and then we'll mercilessly pepper you with questions. If people want to use the chat function, please do. I'll try to monitor that as best I can. If you want to just raise your hand or shout out, that's okay too. The idea is to keep this, lively and informative and informal, as we say, our club within the club of BAB. So over to you, Jason. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. And I do hope everybody here will be kind. This is my first time doing anything remotely of this format in a very long time, by design, actually, since before the end of the second Obama administration, actually, and just been heads down trying to think about our role in the world that's to come. I think everybody has been soul searching in different ways over this period. And I'm happy to talk more if the questions lead that towards my specific journey in any elements. What I'm going to try to do is start with a little story that I've never tried anywhere else before, about kind of the arc that leads to our current company, which we pronounce Haven, and what that means for the future of home and hospitality. So more than 9,000 years ago, our human ancestors created the first city of our civilization called Chatul Hayak in what was southern Anatolia, what's modern day Turkey. It had a population of about 8,000 people, lasted for thousands of years. A city of hunter-gatherers living in homes that are not that different than the kinds of homes we live in today. It had a fireplace, kitchen and an oven, a bedroom and a living room. All of this, by the way, in one space, just a few hundred square feet. They had multiple generations of a single genetic family living under that same roof. And other than the fact that they had no windows and entered and exited from the ceiling where the roads were connecting the roofs of these homes, they're pretty similar to how they are today, and they built thousands upon thousands of these for a very long period of time. This concept of home has persisted pretty much since then for the entire 9,000-year period and hasn't really changed. And at the core of what we're doing here at Haven, we believe that this new age of digital transformation affecting every element of our lives and how the assets we interact with, the physical world we interact with, becomes a part of the digital assets we interact with, is about to fundamentally change all of these traditional notions about what a community is, what travel is, what hospitality is, and perhaps most centrally connected to all of this, what the concept of home is and means to each one of us. Yeah, this is a future where home is anywhere you are and anywhere you need to be. It's where your heart is and where your preferences lie. But it allows an on-demand access to an ability to live and integrate in communities throughout the world, pretty much on the fly. The capacity to connect into a global network, a grid of these connected homes, not this concept of Internet of Things, which is a part of it, but more broadly, how the homes themselves connect into the infrastructure of our society. To us, that new class of home that can be anywhere you need it to be, that is merged with also the best of hospitality, we call that a haven. This is full private homes, vacation rentals, private apartments, villas, hotel residences, condos, anything that you would traditionally not associate with historical traditional hotel rooms. That has the potential to be a haven where you can be at home in a place. This matters because the current system we have of travel, even before COVID, and we'll probably talk about that in the questions, I imagine, that system fosters a sense of transience in the communities in which we visit. It causes us as travelers to increasingly be disconnected from the places where we go, and this is more than just over tourism, which we can talk about if that's of interest. It drives into the heart of what it means to be human, which is to travel across the other hill and see what's on the other side. It allowed us to become visitors, not participants in other communities around the world. For us, reimagining the role of home involves the deep and growing intersection between what a home is and what travel is, as residential real estate and travel converge, drawn together by the digital infrastructure that is beginning to power both of these categories and what it means for personalization, for on-demand access to services, to experiences, and to the physical assets, and how even over time those physical assets will change to our preferences even upon our arrival. Things like portal walls and 8K digital televisions, how our pictures and our music and our preferences and our security can travel with us. Where Haven is today is, over the last 2.5 years, we've been building this digital infrastructure for what we view as the future of home and hospitality. We are currently at about 175,000 homes connected into our network, all of them managed professionally by local hospitality companies. Our average property manager has about 20 units on our platform. We work with thousands of property managers around the world. We are the first and largest mover in this differentiated space, which takes the approach of this concept of short-term rentals, but tries to merge it at scale that's in a way that's brand agnostic and property agnostic, but establishes that the full hospitality experience is actually a vital component of connecting to the worlds in which we travel to. And that we want to make sure that as the marginal cost of the distribution of services trends closer towards zero, we're able to get on-demand access to the greatest hospitality services that society has ever delivered on demand wherever we are. And that starts to transform physical assets, which are just a building, typically in the residential real estate space, into something far more. To do this at Haven, we've had to curate the best homes at every price point that are professionally managed around the world. We had to augment these services and then plug them into a differentiated marketplace to start, which valued the services and experiences more than any other part of the market. And to us, that was the professional travel and actually real estate advisor, hundreds of thousands of people whose full-time job it is to deliver experiences for individual clients and corporate clients who live and breathe travel and seek to bring the humanity back into travel. So today, our 175,000 havens are plugging in over multi-year agreements with about 60% of the North American travel advisor market. We have about 4,000 advisors on our platform today, and already are launching the partnerships for the next 40 or 50,000, at which point we'll be a majority connected within the North American market into our platform. And then where we take it together, we'll talk about. But we believe that simply connecting what exists today and isolating the professional experiences of service and homes is a simple phase one, something that doesn't currently exist at scale, but is really just the beginning of building an operating system for what a mobile future of home feels like and looks like, how we augment and develop technologies that plug into this grid and create deeper experiences and connect us deeper into the communities where we are. And then eventually the capacity to build an ecosystem on top of that as we plug into, as we already have begun to do, thousands and tens of thousands and eventually hundreds of thousands of small businesses, not only managing these properties around the world and connecting them into the communities and how we interact with those communities, but the hundreds of thousands of small businesses that are part of those local communities that service the experiences for us as travelers and make us feel home when we're there. So maybe that's it. Hopefully I managed to capture 10 minutes on a topic of great interest to us and hopefully of some interest to all of you. And
Jason, that was great. Thank you. I know Alistair's got a kickoff question, which I'm going to go to in 1 second. But can you, I think, because I know so much about it, perhaps it's obvious to me, but can you maybe explain to the group, you know, if we're your customer, what's the journey like for us in becoming, you know, part of what you're offering?
Sure. So right now, actually, you know, right now by design, we're pretty hard to get access to. With the exception of our partner that runs the benefits program for Apple, Google, and Microsoft, where we provide direct access to our platform, you know, through their corporate intranets. Our primary focus right now is actually on servicing the business-to-business markets of travel advisors, which come in all kinds of shapes and forms. Later this year, we've already started pilot programs. So we expect to have tens of thousands of real estate agents also able to access this for, you know, 2 and 3 and 4 month stays, which is not something that they can currently offer. But the general journey starts with, you know, and we're going to start to add to the definition of professional advisors, including family offices, and corporate travel planners to a degree, and we'll kind of roll out from there. But the journey starts often with a human, which is in some respects the opposite of how it's designed. Now, we do have a full consumer grade platform designed for enterprise use that we're constantly testing with about 5,000 unique users just who are direct travelers of different price points. But that's really multiple years in the future. About when we go out to that market, we need to offer something dramatically different in terms of the technology we offer, things that currently aren't available, like group bookings, like dynamic group bookings, the ability, for example, to book 80 guests of your wedding with a single technology platform that is actually recommending that engine to you and letting you dynamically create that community that you traveled with you for that place. That kind of technology is what we're building for the professional market. Will eventually make sense for the consumer. But for now, it starts with basic questions. The travel experience starts when you engage the concept of where you're going to be and who you're going to be with, and what are the requirements and ways to maximize that experience. And typically, that experience then becomes guided by the thousands of professionals plugged into our platform for the consumer today.
Awesome, thank you. Alistair, did you want to kick it off with your question? You're on mute still.
Yeah, that one.
There you go.
So I run Standing Architecture. I'm sort of in the business of tailoring people's homes. So this is massively interesting to me. I just wondered, you said everywhere is home, which I think is an interesting idea. But if everywhere is home, why do you think people are traveling?
I think, the home industry as we know it today, as I just mentioned, it's about 9,000 years old. The travel industry goes as far as our species goes. This desire, this fundamental need to experience lives. To experience our lives in ways that challenge at least some portion of our senses to make us feel alive. I think to us here at Haven, and I do think that over the decades travel has evolved. To us here at Haven, we can't separate the desire to live and the desire to travel. That's fundamentally who we are. And so going, and I think until recently, like the last 15 years, the way software and data was available and how you could build a platform on top of it wasn't in a place where you could manage a global platform of homes. So you had to, by design, deal with these self-contained, fairly formulaic buildings where 90+% of the inventory of your average 125-room hotel is the same. Differences aside of city or ocean view or two queens or a king bed kind of thing, they're the same. And so that colored the experience, and it created a more transactional type of travel. Now, in the last 15 years, we've seen this enormous growth in what is colloquially called the short-term rental category, what we would call a subset, the professional subset we would classify as havens, which is a bit broader because it does work with hotels, just not the traditional square box room in those hotels. We think that the technology is now just becoming available to do what we're doing. Stage one of a marketplace is what you see today. It's an eBay style peer-to-peer market, which is spectacularly good at hyper growth and relatively bad at consistency of that experience. What you gain in hyper growth, you lose in experience, and notwithstanding the personalization of the real estate asset itself, which you get. And so that's now kind of where we are today. And the stage two of that marketplace is to bring in professional distribution, professional experiences, professional and enterprise grade technology that starts to do much more advanced things to first standardize and then augment that experience. And I think that, to bring it back to the question of, about travel, I think that we're only at the cusp of this multi-decade transition to home and travel starting to feel like the same thing.
That's awesome. Thank you, Jason. The idea behind our Accelerate group is, we're an entrepreneurs club, if you will. I think everybody's always interested in, how do you start a business? How do you scale a business? What gave you the inspiration to create this business? Can you sort of take us from, 2018 to now? Not in an hour and a half, but, a quick journey.
The inspiration, I think myself and my partners and those around us, we kind of view ourselves as creatives, like we're compelled to try to solve things with our hands and with our minds. It's less a choice than it is a need to try something new and valuable to others. This specific journey actually was almost a decade in the making. 10 years ago, roughly, I founded a technology-led merchant banking platform where we built technology to help small and mid-sized private companies access capital and exit more successfully, a part of the market that had precipitously lost access to about 80% of its capital at the same time that private equity assets under management ballooned. We're talking transaction sizes between 10 and 100 million in particular. It was highly inefficient. This is an extremely fragmented market, and we were building technology for this. And for one reason or another, perhaps our love of the space, we ended up doing a lot of deals and making a lot of investments in travel technology companies. So along the way, we worked with some of the largest private platforms in the travel space here in North America, mostly on the consumer side, that we're doing packaging and innovations in secondary markets for timeshares in particular. And as we looked at that, it became clear that 1/5 of the global travel marketplace, which was the professional marketplace of distribution, which is everywhere that you access a travel that is not Delta.com, Hyatt.com, or Expedia, or Priceline. It's about 20% of the market. Everything from your credit card company to hundreds of thousands of travel advisors had literally zero access to the fastest growing part of travel, which was short-term rentals, private homes, and home sharing. And so we set out to solve that. And then in 2018, and as we were building the technology, we started to realize somewhat organically that the very definition of travel and home was in a process of great transition. So we actually, that phase one, I described a marketplace of professionally managed homes and professionally serviced experiences. That was really how we started. And then we began to realize the implications of the operating system for this future of travel, for this future of a new asset category called havens. And then the potential for that operating system to grow into an entire ecosystem that was kind of organic over the last 12 to 18 months.
Awesome. I know you're big on this in all the businesses that you've run. And we, as an organization, run a number of programs about the power of purpose and, businesses that are run, with a mission-based purpose. Can you talk a little bit about, in your own entrepreneurial activities, but also as it relates to HVN, the power of purpose? What is the mission? What is the underlying betterment and so forth that I know you're always all about?
Sure. Purpose to us is an identity that exudes every element of how we interact with, our day-to-day lives and our work. When I was in college, I actually acquired and still own purposebrands.com. Like, it's been this lifelong concept, underarching, even the names of the companies we've developed kind of still have roots in that concept of purpose. My first company actually that I started in college that lasted a few years was called partyforapurpose.com. And it was about building marketplaces that allowed people to connect to experiences that held purpose for them. And it really wasn't the time, as it turned out, at the beginning part of the millennium to build the kind of platform that we wanted then. And so we kind of evolved to more robust technologies that we felt could craft deeper services and experiences, first for finance and now for travel. I think it's not, having a roadmap is great, but it doesn't mean anything without a vision that we can all hold on to. Like, how can we bring joy to others, principles that we live by, and how those ultimately intersect with our approach to problems like sustainable travel. And I think, so here at Haven, and I can talk more about specific programs we're thinking about, and I hope I answered your question effectively for the group, that if you're in a place where you believe that you need to create a program in order to excite your people, then you're not living that company with purpose. And in fact, it's not going to work. That putting, the old phrase, putting lipstick on a pig, like, it's a harsh phrase, but I think it's important to understand when we're doing something that is fundamental to who we are versus paying lip service to something. And I think authenticity of purpose, whatever that purpose is, even if it's just making money and winning, I think really excites people and helps attract people that share that purpose.
So how would you define then the purpose of HVN?
To build the future of home and hospitality and bring joy to the world.
That's a small task. Let's get in a little bit. I don't want to call them. Let's call them learning experiences. Whether through HVN or other businesses that you've had. Whenever I have clients, who lose a bunch of money or invest in something that didn't work out quite the way they wanted, I tend to tell them, we call that tuition money. You got to learn off of that, and you pivot and you do the next thing, right? And it's an investment actually in a body of work as an entrepreneur. Can you give us, an example or two of things where, you feel like you've earned that tuition money and used it in your next venture or within the same venture to better the product or service?
Sure. I've much larger than just tuition money. I've made millions and I've lost millions over the course of my career so far. And I think it's a fundamental aspect of being a genuine creative. I think if you're not failing, then you're not an entrepreneur, full stop. You're just doing something that other people have done, following a path that's laid out for you. It's simply not possible to innovate without experimentation. This is the scientist in me. Failure is something to be embraced and learned from, and experimentation is the only way to come up with ways to merge ideas into something fundamentally innovative and new. It also has to be interdisciplinary, which is really, really hard. And these are the kinds of things I worked with, engaged with, at a federal level in the previous administration's first term. This notion of how do we encourage people to break the walls between us of ideas and bring expertise together. Oh, by the way, I know we're now in the Biden administration. I'm at the first Obama administration. I'll just be clear about, about that piece. I think my greatest failures, the place where I've struggled the most, I think, is with trusting people to be some ideal that I felt that I was living to, and not realizing that they had different priorities. Bringing in partners at deep levels without protections, without really knowing what it was. And my parents are doctors, so business is something that I had to learn from the ground up. And I think has kind of evolved to this view of organizations as living and breathing organisms on a spectrum of people, where if we do our job right, the team that you build reflects uniquely all of the combined strengths and none of the weaknesses. I realized that working on your weaknesses is actually the wrong approach to being successful, but actually hiring and recruiting for those weaknesses with yourself or within the organization, learning carefully when to trust people who are better at that thing than you, and just give them that trust to make the decisions that you're blind to. And then really know your strengths very well. And I think that is, and I'm not going to talk about this any more than I'm about to say now, as I speak to, the head of my law firm. But you've seen some of those, and they can be brutal experiences, especially when those people come from a different part of your life, and you try to, bring them into what you're doing in business. That can have incredibly positive and incredibly negative repercussions.
No doubt about that. Question, I have, I love the point about, filling your roster, if you will, with folks who take care of those areas where you yourself are weak. But you also mentioned, areas that you're blind to. What have you learned? I think much of us, or many of us will say, we know what we're good at. We have a few things we don't like to do. Maybe there's a couple of things we're bad at, but there's other things that we may be bad at that we're just blind to. So how have you learned to see the blind spots and identify those needs?
That's the experimentation and the failure. Your worst moments in life were opportunities to recognize a blind spot. And if you came out of it with an understanding of something fundamental about yourself that allowed that experience to foment and grow, and then you create safeguards in the people around you, knowing that, to err is human, but to build a team is divine. And I think if you can do that effectively, you can grow from every single one of these failures. And I think you can see that to a degree in the success of people who are multiple generation successful entrepreneurs. They walk into an ecosystem that their families have built that allows them to be successful at much earlier ages, because they have people around them that are already protecting against those worst mistakes. That being said, you have to be compelled to push against the limits of that, or you won't create something truly exciting.
You have to have strong ego and also adaptable ego, right?
I mean, I don't know if this is a topic, but to that point, I mean, one of the single best business decisions I ever made, it was marrying my business partner, Megan, who's an incredible Princeton trained entrepreneur, who's like the soul of, my life and in many respects our company. And I think we actually started working together first. And through that process, as has been the case with many of my partners, this is the most extreme version, we start working together and we find greater and greater common ground until we realize we're sharing our lives together. The most extreme version, of course, is marrying your partner, which is different than partnering with your spouse. Those are two different things, I think. But then, as we've built this team, there's about 7 or 8 of us now, around our company that I've worked with for many years, and I just have been through the worst with, and I trust with everything I am. Like, without that foundation, there's no way as an individual I could be successful.
Yeah, outstanding. I know Tamara's got a question. Tamara, you want to jump in?
Thank you. I guess just pivoting a little bit to, being reactive and responsive, wondering, since last March, I think so many businesses have had to kind of reimagine a little bit. And I'm wondering, what COVID did to kind of accelerate some of the things that you were doing or hold back. It seems like it's constantly changing. This morning I was reading about vaccine tourism, 2 words I never thought would be put together in one phrase. So I'm just kind of wondering what the response to that was.
Yeah, I've been evangelizing this concept to my team since the moment we realized what was happening, which is that, volatility and change creates enormous damage no matter what it is, but it's also a part of the cycle of creative destruction. I think, to me, what COVID did to the business landscape is ripped almost all of it at once into the present. And it's a pretty profound concept, what that in fact means. It doesn't mean that we've sort of invented the future because, legacy, unsustainable things fell down. I just think that the drag of entrenched interests that were clearly on a long-term decline was accelerated massively through great pain to our economies. And as a result, it creates an open field for things that are more forward-looking, more versatile, more flexible, but also more forward-looking. And in our case, what we were already looking 5 years out to the future about how we built and designed, the team, the talent, the product, the market that we were going into. We weren't looking at anything that we felt was a 12-month, moment. And as a result, COVID kind of threw the whole thing into disarray and made us the must-have product for our category. We would, without COVID, we would be, we would still get to the same place where we are today. We would have just gotten much, much slower. I mean, in September, we signed a 3.5-year exclusive category agreement with the third largest professional travel conglomerate in the world, the largest in North America, and representing in the US alone about 80,000 professional sellers of travel. I'm not sure that would have happened in our original plan until 2023, and it happened in 2020. So we're all rebuilding together, and that's also been a positive experience, offering something that people want and need. It just happened faster than we expected it would.
Jason, you mentioned a little bit about sustainability. I know that's important to you as well. How does that fit into the model of HVN?
So we pronounce HVN Haven, by the way.
Haven without the A.
It's totally fine. We're going to be having that conversation thousands of times for a long time, and that's, I think, how you build a brand, actually. But there's a couple of ways, I think, to look at sustainability, especially in the context of intersecting multiple trillion-dollar industries, like foundations of our economy, as we do. Tourism collectively is 1/10 of global GDP and all of the ecosystems that it feeds into, including travel. Real estate is about the same size. Residential real estate, in particular, where's our focus. And I think sustainability touches all of that. In travel, for the next few decades, sustainability is going to be defined in large part by how millennials define it in the context of travel, as they grow into the largest dominant wallet in travel that people are fighting for. And to the millennial traveler, tourism is not transient, but embedded into the experiences of the place where they're going. They want to stay longer, go deeper, and if possible, leave the place that they entered better off when they leave than when they arrived, which they view as a complete and direct opposite to the travel industry that they feel that they've inherited, that often leaves the place that you visited worse. And you can see it in municipal government reactions. Broadly speaking, places that traditionally were had over tourism are now restraining that tourism, recognizing the importance of a more independent economy for the local citizens, and recognizing that the pain that in taking the pain of COVID fully, kind of like almost like Tai Chi, you kind of turn that back around into a strength if you're forced to deal with the negative components of it to begin with. And so they're trying to they're trying to invite people to stay longer. They're trying to invite people to be participatory taxpayers in these destinations, right? We only work with professionals. We believe that home sharing is, as a concept, is magnificent, but it's the primary reason for the backlash against the category. Not when we're professionally managed, paying taxes, living by restrictions and held accountable to their impacts. Like, it's very different than when you have no accountability. I think on the residential real estate side, I mean, I saw an estimate today that, well, real estate in New York is going to be, a minimum $10 billion worth of fines just on climate, being climate carbon neutral over the next decade, if it doesn't invest billions in retrofitting those properties to this new experience. So I think sustainability means carbon neutral and leaving what you touch better off. I think in the future of travel and how it reflects is something that we're just beginning to learn today.
Interesting. So are you saying that, so for example, like Airbnb, which a lot of municipalities are up in arms against, your model would be viewed more favorably in those communities because of the additional professional management that you have?
We've had actually we're building direct partnerships with the local governments and tourism boards of everything from the state of Hawaii to multiple sovereign nations in the Caribbean. We work with the municipal governments in multiple places of Mexico, and we're just beginning this. We come in, our first approach is to engage this, the professional ecosystem in which we're engaging. What we lose in hypergrowth, so to speak, we gain in standards, and we are going all into the creation of its standards and the augmentation of those standards. So we found nothing but huge open arms in every part of the market, with thousands of professional property managers, tens of thousands of professional travel advisors, and now dozens of municipal governments all asking us, how can we work together to build a better future together?
Interesting. And obviously, I think, the whole work from home, now there's going to be a work from anywhere concept. How much is that driving what you're doing?
It's not driving anything. I think it just fits kind of very neatly into the overarching vision we have for where the world is going over a 5 and 10 year period, right? I think, you don't catch a bullet by being reactive, right? You have to take a look at the trajectory of it, and start moving before it gets there. And I think our view of just of looking at different marketplaces, and the arc of technologies that drive them, from the first horizontal marketplace, I think which is Craigslist, to all the vertical peer-to-peer marketplaces, Airbnb, eBay, TaskRabbit that emerged from that, to professional marketplaces. I mean, the biggest of which in the world is Amazon, is the biggest professional marketplace. Fulfillment by Amazon has fundamentally changed everything. They took eBay's peer-to-peer model and they said, we're going to sell everything, but we're going to surgically insert professional distribution and logistics at every part where it's transformative and the scale is defensible. And you can see kind of what played out. We have no reason to believe and every reason to feel confident that the exact same thing is going to play out in both the residential real estate and global travel industries. And we're positioning ourselves directly at that by starting with the parts of the marketplace that cared the most about quality, that felt the most left out by the $100 billion IPO that just happened at the end of the year. And we're building our mode hand in hand with these globally minded companies in every local area where we operate. And it's always the same story with slight regional variations.
Yeah, that kind of brings me to the next thing I was thinking of, which is, the competition, and you're building your moat. Marriott's got a large network of homes that they rent, villas and homes, and there are other networks and so forth. I guess two questions. One is, in building your model, are you looking at that competition and distinguishing yourself and figuring out ways to do it better or differently? And what do you think their reaction is going to be once you're getting further and further on the radar? Are they going to be able to compete with you?
So the early years have been interesting because every time we thought we saw a competitor before we really understood it, we ended up partnering with that company. It's just been a repeated thing that we've experienced some dozen times. And yeah, we actually had to build this ecosystem, this like little PhD program in travel distribution and the history of it to even understand what these tens of thousands of players did in the B2B and wholesale distribution markets, because it's highly fragmented and deeply inefficient, but also very stable for decades. And what was the reason why it was so stable? And so in building outside of that box, not using any of the legacy technology, building our own kind of adjacent to, and going into the parts that collect, like the professional travel trade, that were the hardest to penetrate for this market with the most critical thing they needed, which was the short-term rental category, but quality consistency. We just kind of found that entire ecosystem started to welcome us. I think Marriott's an interesting example because they've recently gotten serious about it. I think they're at 16 or 18,000 units today. And actually what they've done to a degree is somewhat, has a degree of similarity to our approach, which is property manager agnostic. What they're doing is they're applying their loyalty program, their Bonvoy program, to a handful of high quality, large property managers to a segment of their business. And so what that program offers is a subset of what we offer. And we've already had early talks about partnering with Marriott because we're not competing with them. What we're building is synergistic, and it would be short-sighted to view like competition in a specific market as competitive. We're also going after a wallet that they've been unsuccessful for in this category that nobody's been able to unblock, which helps by going to the travel trade. I think to us, the competition, while we could layer out specific types of companies or specific companies and explain the sliver of places where we compete, by and large, the travel industry is a frenemy market where everybody competes with everybody and works with everybody. And because we're going into a blank space, we trend more on the friendly than on the enemy side of that equation.
I think, as you said, the more people experience, not just going to a box of a room in a hotel and have a different type of, a villa experience or a home experience, that opens it up certainly for you. So whatever they're doing can only help, I guess, in some degree. You mentioned the Bonvoy Marriott program, the credit card program. Do you think you're going to have some affiliate relationships? Are we going to see the Haven credit card coming out soon?
Talks have been had. You will not see that coming out soon because you're not going to see a consumer version of our site in the immediate future. We're looking at a market that that we expect to be $1 billion. We view it as a $24 billion plus market opportunity for property managers, real estate owners, and us at minimum. And it would be flagrantly unfocused for us to do something so consumer focused so quickly when we have to make sure that we capture the core of the market opportunity we're currently focused on. That being said, we've had, loyalty is incredibly important. How we engage with the community is incredibly important. Our approach is more about the sustainability of how the experiences are created and also the services that we inject, and how our goal is to augment and transform the human experiences of travel and the human participants that support your experience, rather than try to automate them away and kind of let you deal with the millions of choices yourself. which we think is actually at the beginning stages of a massive backlash from consumers, particularly millennials.
Interesting. I tend to agree. Tamara, I know you have another question, and I'll get to David, your question as well.
Roger, you actually asked my question about sort of competition and go to market. So feel free to carry on, and then maybe we have time for like one or two more before we go into our breakouts.
Fair enough. So David Grubb has asked, what's been the best part of the Haven journey to date that highlights to you that the best is yet to come? There's a good question.
Oh, so the first half of that, my mind raced to the people on our team. The best part is always the collaborations every single day. And I think that portends of great things to come. I think as maybe this is the second part, I think the most extraordinary moment for us was when we built the multi-year global partnership with Internova and its thousands and thousands of subsidiaries to offer this category, because they're that largest one I was talking about, because it just reflected how this little company, less than 20 people, we're about 20 people now, I guess, would be servicing a platform that expected us to deliver billions of dollars of product to a globally distributed platform with tens of thousands of professionals delivering it. Like that's an extraordinary thing. And to us, a responsibility and an opportunity to create a new industry that we take seriously. And that is the thing that we're most excited about at its core, is the creation of what we think is a totally new industry between hotels and home sharing, this Haven category. And that, if nothing else, going after a market where once we've completed the entire, once we're at the top of it, which we are, we will have some 100,000 professional sellers on our platform. At very minimum, that's 100,000 hyper full-time influencers. When you think about how you can create a new industry from scratch, you either have to do it from the ground up, or from the bottom up, or the top down. And we think that the bottom up is much more exciting, and that was a seminal moment for us.
That's awesome. I guess I've got one last question, I guess, and then I'll turn it back to Tamara. As an entrepreneur building this business, and really any of the businesses that you've been in, you have 10 jobs, at least just on Monday, and then another 10 on Tuesday and so forth. And they probably fall into the category of, one, you're building the business, two, you're out there raising investment dollars, so you're the fundraiser, and then you're also trying to build your team, and that include in your team, your board members. How do you divide your time among those three areas? Where do you think it's most important to put your time? And then the last part of that is, and I know your board, which is amazing. How do you get a prestigious, influential, effective board to be part of your team?
It's funny. I heard pretty much everything you said, and I thought they're all the same job, which is people.
Okay.
So,
Fair enough.
I try to focus on the people, and it's a lot of reading, because I think a lot of it is having conviction about what the core principles and identity and strategy is, and then the rest of it is just finding those that share that vision and equally share convictions and energy and passion and intellect, and at some level we have ways in which we approach that. And if we do nothing but go through life in situations like this, collecting the handful of people that say, yes, that's what I want to do too, how do I engage? And we're very thoughtful about who we actually engage with, and we're not trying to sell people, we're trying to share and even filter to who we welcome into our world. That if we do that success is just a byproduct of joyfully building with people that inspire you around you every single day.
I think that's an excellent way to tie this up. Thank you.
The same thing. It's just recruiting people who put, who put cash in more so than they put time.
Yeah.
And a board member is somebody who maybe puts a bit more of both in.
Awesome. Jason, thank you for this. Really informative. I can't wait till you open it up to the rest of the world so we can all get a background shot like what you have. Until then, I'll try to get a job at Amazon and see if I can get in that way. Tamara, over to you. And I apologize to everybody. I have a 12 o'clock, so I'm not going to be able to stay for the networking, but this was great. And Jason, thanks again.
Thanks, Roger. Well, first of all, thank you for moderating that, but more importantly, thank you for bringing Jason into our lives for an hour here. I'm always humbled when we have, these brilliant entrepreneurs who have such a clear vision for what they're doing. So Jason, on behalf of all of us, a huge thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. And we hope you can come back and do it again with us next year, because we'd love an update. With that said, for everyone else, if you can and you'd like to, please do stick around. We'd like to get you introduced to one another a little bit. And so the team now will just kind of do their magic and send you off into the breakout rooms. And again, we'll say goodbye to Roger and Jason. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye. So I'm not sure if everyone is coming back in here, or some people may have just went on their ways, but it was good to see everyone. Thanks for joining. We have our next session on February. My team can help me. One day in February, we have our networking happy hour, February 25th.
Yeah, we shared the link to sign up in the chat, so feel free to sign up for that.
Okay, super. Thank you, Nicolina. So yeah, it was good to see everyone. I know everyone has much more on during their day, so thank you again, and see you at the next one.